Coaches Direct presents Legends of the Game. Coaches Direct presents Legends of the Game. Learn football fundamentals from the top college coaches in the country. Frank Beamer, Bobby Bowden, John Cooper, Frank Solich, Bob Toledo, Joe Paterno, Boyd Epley, Mac Brown, Philip Fulmer, and Tom Osborne. Virginia Tech's Frank Beamer is one of the most respected and successful coaches in all of college football. Beamer has accomplished what most coaches just dream of, turning his alma mater into a national power. Beamer was an outstanding defensive back at Virginia Tech in the late 60s and a captain of the Hokies' 1968 squad. After working his way up in the coaching ranks, Beamer returned to Blacksburg, Virginia in 1987 as the Hokies' new head coach. 10 years later, Frank Beamer was already the winningest coach in school history. Building a college football program into a national powerhouse is a daunting task. Many try, few succeed. Frank Beamer is among the few. The Hokies began to make waves on the national level in the early 90s. In 1990, Tech was ranked in the top 25. In 93, the top 20. And then in 1995, Virginia Tech captured the Big East title, won the Sugar Bowl, and were ranked among the nation's top 10 teams at the end of the season for the first time in school history. And Frank Beamer was just getting warmed up. The Hokies added Big East titles again in 1996 and 1999, playing in 7 straight bowl games in the process. But it was 1999 when Virginia Tech truly entered the realm of the elite in college football. The Hokies completed an 11-0 regular season and played for the national championship against Florida State in the Sugar Bowl. Tech narrowly lost to the Seminoles, finishing the year as the number 2 team in the nation, and Frank Beamer was named the National Coach of the Year. One of the chief reasons for Virginia Tech's phenomenal rise in college football has been Beamer's attention to special teams. The Hokies have a national reputation for special teams play. In fact, they blocked more kicks in the 1990s than any other team in college football. In this video, Beamer shares with you the fundamentals of special teams play used at Virginia Tech. Along with 3 of his top assistant coaches, Beamer will take you through all aspects of special teams play: kicking, punting, blocking, and covering. In fact, this is the most comprehensive special teams video ever made, and it's taught by one of the nation's best teachers, motivators, and coaches, Frank Beamer, a true legend of the game.
It takes offense, defense, and kicking to win football games. As an assistant coach and a head coach, I work directly with the offense. I work directly with the defense. I've called offensive plays. I've called defensive plays. But now I work directly with the kicking game. And the reason why, I believe it's the quickest way to win a football game. The kicking game affects 2 things which greatly determines winning and losing. 1, field position. 2, momentum. Let's talk about field position. We know that the further away an offense starts from the goal line, the more difficult it will be to score. Conversely, the closer the offense starts, the easier it will be to score. Our field chart clearly shows the difference. The significance of this information is simply that we can utilize the kicking game to give our opponents poor scoring percentage and enhance our own scoring percentages. For example, on kickoffs, if we can start an opponent inside their own 20-yard line, their chance of scoring is going to be 1 in 30. On a punt, if we return it to their 40, we have a 1 in 3 chance of scoring. And so there's always points and there's always yards involved in the kicking game. So therefore you have big plays, momentum plays. If a team is aligning to kick a field goal and defense blocks it and scores, there's a difference of 9 points. 3 that the offense didn't get and 6 that the defense did get. Big difference. For every 10 yards you get in the return in the kicking game, it's a first down that the offense doesn't have to get. If a team's punting, say they're punting from their 40-yard line, defense blocks it and scores. It's a difference of 80 yards. 40 for the average carry of a punt and 40 for the yards that their defense returned it. And it's 6 points. It's big momentum plays. I think it takes great athletes with good football sense to be successful in the kicking game. So much of special teams is in the open field, so good judgment has to be there. To block a kick, to block or tackle someone in the open field, you got to be a good athlete. In this video, we're going to talk about particular skills involved with special teams: the punting, the kicking, the snapping, the holding, the catching. We're also going to talk about blocking kicks, special techniques that we teach here at Virginia Tech. Finally, we're going to go through our special teams and give you some thoughts about special situations there and some special thoughts on that. You know, it's not hard to get people to talk about offense or talk about defense. And a lot of people talk about special teams, but sometimes people don't spend as much time on it as probably it deserves. You know, you say it's offense is a third of the game, defense is a third of the game, special teams is a third of the game. But in reality, I think special teams is more than that in terms of winning. It gives you the greatest opportunity to win the quickest of any of the three. So that's why we spend a lot of time on it here at Virginia Tech. It's why I'm actively involved with it at Virginia Tech. It's big plays, it's momentum plays, it's a lot of yardage. Anytime you line up to kick a football, all those things enter into it. So for that reason, we spend a lot of time on it here at Virginia Tech. When we look for a special team player, it's not necessarily a second-team guy or a third-team guy, a guy that's not going to get in other situations. We look for the very best guy to do that job. And generally, you're talking about good athletes with good judgment. It takes a good athlete to play special teams. You're out in the open field a bunch. You can't block a kick unless you're a good athlete. Good hand-eye coordination. You can't tackle guys in the open field unless you're athletic. You can't break tackles unless you're athletic. So all these things take good athletes. And I think it takes good football sense, good common sense, because again, you're in open field and quick decisions are having to be made, right on the moment decisions. So if you don't have good judgment, good sense about football, a lot of times you're going to make the wrong decision. You know, to put a good football team together, it takes so many pieces of the puzzle, and they got to fit. And the people that play special teams are a vital part of that puzzle. They're the ones, to me, the guys that go down and cover those kickoffs, the guys that go down and make tackles on punt returns, the guys that block for field goal protection. These are guys, the ones that do it very well, the ones that are really people that really care about winning. I can tell you this, when I look at a recruit out of high school, I want to see him on the special teams. You know, I watch him on offense or I watch him on defense, but I ask the coaches, as they say, show me a picture of this guy playing special teams. Show me a picture of him running down on a kickoff, because if he's got great hustle, great effort during that time, you can rest assured this guy's going to give you great effort, great hustle. I tell our guys here, it's a great way to get to the NFL. I think most college guys want to get to the NFL. Well, most of the times those guys are not going to go up and be a starter that first year. So if they can block a punt better than those other guys, it might be the difference in making a team or not making a team. If they can protect on kickoff returns, if they can block on kickoff returns, then it might be the difference. So if you can play special teams well, it might be your ticket to the NFL. When you look at special teams, in my opinion, it's one of the greatest things about football. It may not have the same attention as offense. It may not have the same attention as defense. But in terms of winning and what it takes to win, this is really where it's at. In this tape, we're going to try to give you a lot of different things about special teams. Some individual skills, how to kick a ball, how to punt a ball, how to hold a ball, how to catch a ball, the different skills that's involved. Plus, I've got some coaches, and what I have here is a great coaching staff that's very involved in special teams. Some of them have come from other staffs and have worked directly with the special teams there. Danny Pearman is going to be with me today. Bud Foster, who's been very knowledgeable in special teams for a long time. Brian Steinspring, guys on my staff here that's going to help me present to you some of the things we do within our special teams plays here at Virginia Tech.
Hi, I'm Danny Pearman, tight end and assistant offensive line coach here at Virginia Tech. I also have the privilege of working with our kickers here. I want to take time to introduce you Shane Graham. He was a kicker here at Virginia Tech, all Big East, does an excellent job for you. I'd like to go over 5 basic principles we believe in that our kickers should do to be successful. First off, let's start, Shane, with a stance. Shane's going to align in a balanced stance. And the key to being a good kicker, one of the basic things is balance. Notice his nose is over his toes. The weight of his body's on the ball of his feet. He's relaxed, but most importantly, he's in balance. Second thing that's important is his approach. He's relaxed, he's in rhythm, he takes a momentum step, and he approaches the football. Very similar to a golfer as he swings a golf club. He wants to be smooth, he wants to be in rhythm, he takes a momentum step, and here he goes. Next thing we talk about is visual perception. It's very similar to the way a pilot flies a plane, the way he trusts his instruments, that there's a runway there. This kicker's trusting that the snap's going to be there, the hole's going to be there, and he's going to be able to deliver the kick through the target or the uprights. Okay, next thing we'd like to talk about is the actual plant or his plant foot as it approaches the football. What he wants to do is go heel and kind of roll through it. Notice there too, as he rolls through it, he comes out with a skip. The plant, we like to use words such as firm. He wants to be firm and secure, that it doesn't slide or that he slips, because this allows his hips to pivot. Again, he goes heel to toe and skips through it. Once he gets his plant foot down, his hips get square to the target and is able to drive the ball through the goalpost. For instance, if he were to plant too far in front of the ball, he would leave his hips open and have a tendency to push it to the right. If he would plant too far behind the ball, his hips would be closed and he'd have a tendency to hook it or snatch it or kick a knuckleball to the left. He wants to be square and flush on impact with his hips directly towards the target. Next, let's talk a little bit about the actual strike of the football. Going back and talking like we did earlier on visual perception, he's already made in his mind exactly where he wants the ball to go. As he plants, he sees where the ball is. The ball's planted. He's got his target. He keeps his head down. Now he strikes the football with the inside of his foot. Important things to remember in striking the football is his head down and making solid contact with the ball. This is a little drill we do to loosen up before we actually kick. It's just a plant drill where just to work on his technique and form. Probably his bigger part of kicking is the follow-through, that he's able to keep his momentum driving through the football and finishes. His ability for distance and leg speed come from his follow-through. He stays down on it, driving through the football, and finishes, much like a golfer does on his golf swing. He needs to finish through the football as well. Along those lines of his follow-through, his head stays down. He doesn't look up towards his target. He keeps his eye on the ball and driving down through it. In putting it all together, the battery of the field goal team obviously is our snapper, our holder, and our kicker. They all must act as one in order for us to be successful.
I think the thing that really is important is that our kickers compete during the week. It's a very difficult thing to run into the game cold and kick, and that's for that reason we try to very much get our kickers to compete during the week. We'll bring them out here and we'll go to different parts of the field and have competition, so they're kicking with a purpose and they're just not out here kicking. We don't kick a lot. We about 25 kicks a day. Get your rhythm down, get the motion right. If you've got the thing right, you don't need to just keep kicking. We'd rather have them fresh on Saturday, have a nice live leg. So our theory is get your rhythm right, kick till you feel like that's correct, and then stop. In this segment, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't teach, but certainly we take care of all the details here at Virginia Tech. And something that is tremendously important in the operation of a field goal kick, and that's holding for the kicker. I want to introduce to you Caleb Hurd. He's held for Shane Graham here for 4 years and knows a lot about holding a football. So, Caleb, let's start out with the position that you're going to catch the ball and holding the football. So we'll go to that right now. The receiving position that we teach is for the holder to have his left knee up. And why I think this is important, it gives a reference to where the ball is going to be placed. In other words, when the left arm comes back and hits the knee, that's what gives you a reference as to where you're going to put the ball down. And one thing that's really important here is consistency. Do the same thing over and over. The ball's going to go to the same spot over and over. So by having that knee up, that left elbow hitting it, Now you have a reference for where the ball is going to go. I think the next thing, Caleb likes to hold with his left hand down to where he's going to put the ball, with his right hand out to tell the center he's ready to catch it. And that's fine. He likes this because now he has movement as the ball is coming. Everything's not stationary. The other way of holding is to have both hands out and to be ready to catch the ball in that regard. But I think the one thing that is important is that your hands are nice and loose, just like a receiver catching the football. You don't want to be tight and tense. They need to be nice and loose and getting ready to catch it. The next thing after we catch the football is to make sure we get the seams in front when the ball is on the ground. And that assures us that the ball will be kicked in an accurate fashion. In other words, if you get the seams on the side, the longer the kick, the more those seams affect the flight of the ball. We want a true trajectory on that football. So as Caleb catches the ball, he'll even spin it to get that seam in the proper spot. And that becomes a feel thing. You really catch it, you feel those seams, now you move them to the front. The more you work with a snapper and the more the distance is the same, the more that snap is going to come to you the same way. So all these things goes into the consistency of kicking. The ball's got to go down to the same spot every time. Next thing is that Caleb does this very quickly but calmly. The longer that ball's on the ground, the longer that kicker can see his sweet spot where he's actually trying to hit that ball. So the quicker it gets down there, the better. Let's talk about actually holding the football. We want to do this primarily with the index finger. We'd like to fold the other fingers there on the left hand, get them out of the way. We don't want anything bothering the vision of the kicker. And the right hand gets out of the way. So the only thing that's touching the football is basically the index finger, so he's got a good view of his sweet spot. And then the last thing is don't let go. Make sure you got that finger, that index finger on that football until the kicker actually kicks through and hits the sweet spot.
My name is Bud Foster. I'm the defensive coordinator and linebacker coach here at Virginia Tech. Like many of the other coaches, I also am involved in the special teams. We understand it's an important part of the success of our program. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the base fundamentals and elements of punting the football. Who I have with me today is Shane Graham. Shane was an outstanding place kicker for us and was a backup punter for us as well in our program and was an all-league performer and really an outstanding performer for us here at Virginia Tech. What I want to do is talk to you about the 6 phases or 6 elements that we emphasize in our punting game. The first segment that we're going to talk about will be our stance. Like any position, you know, we talk about with our punters and with our kickers, we're going to treat them the same way as we treat, you know, any other position on the field, and everything starts with a good stance. Now, the thing we really talk about 2 different stances that we'll use. Number 1, we'll talk about with our shoulders being square and feet will be shoulder width apart. We want our feet parallel, toes pointed to the line of scrimmage. We want a good bend in our knees, in our waist, and we want to put our nose over our toes with our hands relaxed down away from our body, with my eyes up, looking at the snapper. The next stance we talk about would be our staggered stance. Okay, in this stance, what we would do, we'd take our kick foot and we could stagger it with our toe to instep or toe to heel behind, or we could take our foot and place it in front of our plant foot, whichever the kicker feels more comfortable with. But again, we'd have our toes pointed down the field. We want to have a good bend in our knees and our waist with our arms down relaxed and our head up, looking at the center, looking at the ball. Now, the next segment we want to go into is one that's probably overlooked and taken for granted, but is the ball catch. The ball catch primarily, the key to the ball catch and part of the stance is having your hands relaxed away from your body, but now that allows your hands to go up and reach the ball. What we want to do is catch the ball in our hands, not catch it in towards our body, but extend out, catch it in our hands, have soft hands, but also now we want to have the expedience of catching the ball and now turning the ball to where the seams are now, or the lace rather, pointed directly up in the air. Now let's just talk about arm position and the placement of the ball as you get ready for your drop. Okay, number 1, we don't want to have the ball in our palm. We want to point the end of the football into our palm, but notice we're also holding the ball with our fingertips. We want to extend our arm, but have a slight flex in the elbow. All right, and now what we want to do is we want to point this elbow towards the outer part of our kicking leg. Now what that does, it may feel like that elbow is outside, but what that does is it places the ball directly above your kicking leg with the laces pointed to the sky. The most important phase of the punting aspect is the drop. The drop is the one that kind of makes or breaks a punter. It needs to be the most consistent element. The key with the drop is, again, now what we want to do, our pressure is with our fingertips. We want to drop the ball so that the laces are up and that the ball will drop and land on the fat part of the football. Now, the key to it is, too, we like to teach, as you notice, we're teaching a one hand. You know, we like to teach that instead of two hands because we feel two hands has a tendency now, when you have two involved, you have a tendency to pull the ball, or now you have a tendency to, with the other hand, may lift the point end up or drop the heel one way or the other right there. It's a good drop right there. The next element that we're going to talk about is the contact. All right, the ball contact should be approximately 2 to 3 inches above the knee, all right, which would be approximately 2.5 feet off the ground. We want to make sure, too, with our contact that our toe, our foot, and our ankle are fully extended. And we want to make sure that it's extended on contact and through contact. The last segment we're going to talk about is a leg swing. The key to the leg swing is what we want to do is have the leg swing in a straight path. Now, the thing that we like to do is we like to work down the line. We have a series of drills that we'll do with our leg swing down the line, and also when we're practicing our punting, we'll work down the hash or down the lines. The thing we want to make sure that we're seeing here again is that his foot is cocked, his toe, foot, and ankle are extended. We want to make sure that his swing is right down the line and that he has proper extension, and his knee should come up to his right eye in this situation. Now, to end it up, I'd like to show you a couple of drills that we use for our punters that they implement and work on every day. The first is just a ball drop, and what we like to do is they can do it stationary, just standing there, extending their hand and dropping the ball. They can do that on their own anytime. Ideally, what we like them to do as much as possible is go through their steps to where they're moving and now drop the ball. And what we like to do is work it down the line right here, so that way they can work across the field. And then they can work a number of drops every day. We like them to work at least a minimum of 50 drops a day to where they can at least be consistent with their drop, because we feel that is the most important part, is the drop. Now, another drill that we will use would be our down the line drill, which you saw that in our leg swing, but basically we're going to work down the line, working across the field with a leg swing. The next element that we do, we'll tie it all in together. We can now work our ball drop and leg swing all at the same time. All right, finally what we're going to do is put it all together. We're going to tie in good stance, good extension, good drop, all right, and then good extension with our leg swing. During the season, we have an in-season routine that we use with our punters. We don't want them during the day kicking more than 25 balls per day. The reason being is we don't want them to out-kick their leg, make themselves leg weary, but also we want them spending time working on the fundamentals, but not always kicking the football. You know, one thing that we do is we time all of our kicks. Ideally, we'd like our operation time to be 2.1 or better with our punters, and that's the total operation time. Basically, with our punters, we'd like that operation time to be in the 1.3 or quicker segment. We also would like to have a hang time of, 4 seconds or better. That would be the ideal situation.
One of the toughest things I think to do in college football is catch the punt. And particularly in the game when the people are coming down on you and you got to make decisions right there, it's very tough. I've asked my son Shane to help us with this segment, and we're going to talk about catching a punt. I think the first thing is key the punter. If I'm a punt returner, the first thing I want to look at is the punter and see the direction that he's kicking the football. A lot of times they'll give you an idea where the ball is going before they actually kick the ball, just like a center fielder would break on the batter hitting the ball. I think a punt returner needs to be moving in the direction the ball is going to be kicked. The next thing is position yourself on the ball, and you really want to be square. You want to catch every punt with your feet square so you can move in any direction. I think that's a key part. The next thing is you'd like to put that ball, feel like it's coming right down on your nose. That's the position you want to be in, square, and the ball looking like it's going to come down on your nose. Next, I'd say to you, let me have the ball, Shane, is notice what kind of punt it is. If it's a sparrow, but it's not turned over, but it's a nice sparrow, then generally it's going to fall short and to your right. If it's a sparrow and it is turning over, then generally it's going to go deeper than you normally think. So what type of punt it is also gets into it. Now let's talk about actually catching a punt. Number one, you want to spread those fingers, and you want to catch the ball in your hands. You notice Shane's elbows are into his side right now. That's where you want to be. And as you catch the ball in the hands, you give with the ball. In other words, you'll give and the ball will come right back into you and he'll notch it away. Look the ball in. That's another thing that a lot of punt returners forget to do. They want to know where they're going to run. Catch the ball with your hands, elbows in, give with it, and then look it in. Now you're ready to run. Now remember now, don't let that ball hit your chest first. Catch it with your hands, bring it into your body. A lot of people want the ball to hit their chest. Now all of a sudden now it's bouncing around, and those are a lot tougher to catch. Now after you've caught that ball, again, we talked about being square, and now that means you can take the first step where you want to go. And I think that's really important for a punt returner. What we teach, if we've got a side return, we're going to return it, say, to our right, we'd like for that punt returner to catch the ball square, and if he has time, step forward to draw the cover people to him. Now he's going to break hard to his right. And he can only do that if you catch the ball square, under control. Or if you've got a middle return and you've caught it, you're square, we'd like to take a step to our side and then all of a sudden plant and come right back up the middle. In other words, setting up our blockers on cover people. And this, again, can only happen if you're catching the ball square. A couple of don'ts for that punt returner. Number one, don't attempt to handle a punt rolling unless you're facing the coverage and you have time to pick it up. If you're facing them, pick it up and let's go. The other possibility there is if you know you have a lot of time, you might catch it going away from you. But generally, face the coverage people before you pick up a punt that's rolling. Our second don't is don't give the fair catch signal if you're not going to catch the punt inside your 10-yard line. In other words, when you give that fair catch signal, you're allowing people to run to the goal line and down the ball inside your 10. What we say to do is go in the general line of where that punt is going and act like you're going to catch the football, draw people to you, and hopefully the ball will bounce behind you and go on into the end zone. You get the ball back out at the 20. I've got some do's. You field all punts in the game unless it's late in the game and you're leading and you got field position. Then you can let the ball hit the ground and consume time. But that should be discussed on the sideline. Basically, you want to try to field every ball that you possibly can and not let it hit the ground. I think you make a decision to fair catch early and give the signal clearly. A couple of good waves with your hand. In other words, you got to make that judgment, and you should know how the people coming down, and now make that catch, fair catch signal, and don't leave it into the official's hands. I think a good punt returner has got to break a tackle. You know, you're talking about a guy that can do a good job of returning. First, he needs to catch it, but then he's got to have the ability to break that first tackle and go. I think when you're talking about the sun, you align yourself with the sun so that you're actually looking away from it when you catch the football. So wherever the sun is, you align yourself with it, and then you actually try to put your back to it as you're catching the ball. And that way you're not looking directly into the sun. You can also put that hand over your eye to shade you, make sure it's stationary so that it doesn't become like a fair catch signal. And finally, you got to be in control. Usually most punt returners are back there by themselves. We use Peter to say, hey, the ball's going to be short. I'm going to fair catch it. Get out of my way. I don't want that ball hitting you in the head trying to block for me. But you've got to scream that out. You've got to get the people straight. And then the other thing, if the ball's on the ground rolling, it's a Peter call. So those people trying to block for you know to quit blocking, find the ball, and get away from it. You can help them by screaming, Peter, Peter, but then pointing to where the ball is so they've not got a general direction of where that ball is. Peter, 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 Peter! You got to be in control. You got to make good decisions back there, and then catch the ball and let's take it to the end zone.